What is going on, gorgeous human beings? David Lyon here, founder of Evolving Man and Embodied Creators. So in this video, I want to talk about anger, as I posted something on social media which brought up quite some resonance and some questions and some comments. Basically, I said that anger for me is an incredibly vital, life-serving energy that I'm really grateful to have brought more and more into my life, and basically asked the question, what do you do to access anger? And I also said, anger helps me know what I want. And so I want to respond in particular to two comments. One being that anger is toxic, anger is not healthy, it comes with bad emotions and thoughts, and thus is bad. And the other one being a question of, how does anger help me actually know what I want? So let me start a bit more broadly and say, what do I mean by anger, and kind of check with you, even if we're not in a live conversation, what are your associations with anger? So I'll assume that when you hear anger, you think of someone screaming, maybe using their body, being like, "Urgh, urgh." So that would be for me the very upper ranges of anger, which you might even call rage. And that is part of anger, but when I talk about anger, I talk about it in a more broad way, where, for example, me sitting here choosing that I'm going to speak to you and having the clarity in my mind and the, let's say, the balls to just show myself, that already is anger. So anger in its very basic form for me is having a clear direction in life. You could say aggression, the ability to move towards what I want, the ability to say no to something that I don't want. The ability to set boundaries, which comes with the ability to say no. Knowing what I want and then being able to also follow up. So it's one thing to know what I want, but then the other thing is being able to actually take steps towards it. And so in a very simple way, you can think of a child grabbing for something. That is the energy of aggression. And in a way, I use that synonymously with anger. Unfortunately, most of us learn that anger isn't so welcome, that when we show up in our anger, in one way or another, we experience feeling rejected or left alone. And I think most parents and caretakers do not actually intend to do that, but they just themselves don't have a healthy relationship to their own anger. And so when a child expresses its anger, and if you've spent time with children, you know that in the beginning, they have no repression whatsoever of their anger. They express it full on. And so most caretakers are not able to actually meet that anger, because one thing that I'm still learning, and I've learned a lot, is that when I'm angry and when there is some energy of I want more distance, I want more space, this is too close, that does not mean I don't want to be in relationship with you. And that is one big misunderstanding of anger, that anger means get the hell out of here, I don't want anything to do with you, I don't want to be relating to you, go away. It might be expressed in this way if a boundary has been hurt, but anger heals when we are able to relate, when we are able to stay in relationship, in the anger, in the intensity. So that would be like something that I practice with my partner, is one of us is angry and the other one is present. It's like, I hear your anger, you're really angry, you're angry with me, you're angry at something that I did. I feel all sorts of things in response to that, and I'm here. That's when anger heals, and that's when the message of anger actually comes through. So to sum up, when I talk about anger, I mean much more than the associations that we usually have with anger, being rage and some kind of full-on violent expression of this energy. Now, moving forward, anger becomes toxic, anger becomes violent when we don't give it space. So if you've spent time in spiritual or new age communities, you probably have gotten the notion that anger is not the most welcome emotion, that we should transcend anger, and so on and so forth. And so I want to point out the truth that lies in this, which is when I stay connected to the energy of anger inside of me, I might not very often need to go to rage, because I'm very clear about my own boundaries. I'm very clear about what I want and what I don't want. And so even before something as rage could happen, I've already communicated clearly what I want and what I don't want. So that's the truth part of it, that a lot of healthy forms of anger might not be noticed as, oh, this is the energy of anger. As I said before, just going for what you want or saying a clear and loving no, that's already the energy of anger. You're already using that energy. So when I'm really connected to myself, I might, in many situations, be able to express my anger in a very clear, loving, and not as like pent up way. However, I think that we very much need the capacity to access rage. We very much need the capacity to step into our full-on anger. If we don't integrate that, if we don't allow ourselves to go there, then it's like there's one piece in our repertoire missing. It will become a shadow. And so first, we will not be able to meet the anger of other people. We will not be able to stay because we haven't integrated it. And there might be moments where it's absolutely appropriate to express rage, to be enraged by what is happening in the world. I think that's very healthy. Now the question is, can I stay in relationship with that rage, or does it take over so that I have no space anymore, so that I become rage? And that is what I think is toxic rage or toxic anger, is it overtakes me. So I'm not experiencing anger and using that energy to stand up for something or to say no to something, but it drives me. That I think can become very toxic. And I think a lot of violence happens this way, that people don't know how to contain their anger, meaning how they can stay present in their body, in the intensity with their anger, and feel okay about it. So they lash out because it's too much, it's too intense. That is toxic anger. But guess what? We get to toxic anger by holding it back all the time. That's why we explode. And so I think we very much need spaces where we're able to, where we learn to access also these high levels of anger, not just, I think this can also become like a cathartic game of like, oh, just from time to time I access my full-on anger and I let everything out and then I'm free of anger. But that's not the idea. I want you to keep your anger. I want you to stay connected to anger just on a lower level, where it shows up as clarity, as knowing what you want, as being able to say no when something doesn't feel right for you. Okay, so it's not about once a month you express full on your rage and then you're fine. But I do think it's very good to, from time to time, to connect to these high intensity levels of anger, which we would call rage, so that you know you have that in you. Do you know how freaking powerful you are? Do you know how much primal force energy is inside of you? Well, the more that you know that, the less you will actually have to act it out, because it's in your body and people will feel that. People will feel like, oh, I cannot mess with this person because, subconsciously, they will not know this consciously, but they will feel, oh, this person can defend themselves. This person is not easily fucked over. That is the result of integrating anger. All right. So this is my response to this first piece on, is anger toxic or not? What do I mean by anger? Now to the second part, how does anger help me know what I want? So one brother of mine, I think a fellow coach, Bruno, answered that anger shows you basically if something has been violated in your life, like if a boundary has been crossed. So it can help you to reflect oh, what is it that makes me angry, and then understand, okay, so something in this seems like it crossed a boundary, it didn't feel right. That's true, but I would go even broader and say, look, when you embody anger, you are way more connected to your intuition. Okay? In many cases where I don't know what I want, and especially when other people are involved, it often is the case that I'm somehow enmeshed with the others. I'm not clearly connected to myself, being able to say, hey, this is what I want, this is what I don't feel so good about, this is where I feel like, we can talk about it, but this is clear this is a clear yes, this is a clear no. But I'm like in this, but what if they want something else, and then I say what I want, and then it's really uncomfortable, and maybe they will not like it, and blah, 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 right? Like all these fears that we all have inside of us. In this moment, I'm not clearly connected to anger. And many of us, I think, are walking around in this mode of I'm constantly enmeshed, meaning I'm not clearly in my autonomy, but I'm constantly fused with other people. And so it's hard for me to tell, what do I want and what does this person want? There's a beautiful quality in the ability to merge with other people if it's a choice. And for many of us, especially for people with a sensitive nervous system, we learned to fuse with other people so that we know exactly what they're experiencing, so that we can adapt our behavior. To be like, oh, this person is sad right now. So now I can be there for them and console them, and they will love me for that. So the more that I'm connected to my autonomy, to my clarity, to my anger energy, the more there's potential there for other people to be upset, right? The more there's the possibility that I say, hey, this is what I want. And the other person is like, oh, I don't want that. And so we don't have a culture where that's okay, where it's absolutely okay that I want something and you don't. And then it might be really uncomfortable for me. So then I process these emotions and it's fine, right? Like, good example that I think most of us can relate to. There's someone I'm attracted to, and anger energy helps me to actually move into that contact and bring my attraction to the table. And so maybe I'm attracted to someone and they don't feel it, or they're in a place where they're not able to follow up on that attraction because they're committed to other things. So many of us are so afraid of what happens if the other person doesn't like what I like, and all this emotional whirlwind that then happens, and basically our own early childhood experiences of being overwhelmed by intense emotions, that we hold back our anger, we hold back what we want, we hold back our impulses for going for what we want and for saying no to the things we don't want, which is the most natural thing. So I would say your natural state is knowing what you want. If you don't know what you want, then one way to become more clear is to practice connecting to your anger. And I can tell you things that work for me is playing the guitar and playing some really intense emotional songs, like Eminem is a great one. Or moving my body, and especially my legs, like getting energy into my thighs. Singing, so that I get into the space of self-expression. Or actually asking a friend to be like, hey, can you just listen to me? Can you just hold space? And I just share something that pisses me off, so that I kind of get this a bit more spacious and be like, okay, this made me angry, and now I'm in a more clear space again. All right, so don't want this video to become too long. I hope this helps. Anger is a topic I'm very, very passionate about, because I think especially sensitive people benefit a lot when they're able to access their anger. Things become a lot more clear. You're able to be in relationship in a way more empowered way, where you actually realize, oh, I get to co-create relationships. Relationships don't just happen to me. So if you have any more questions about this, anything you'd like to know, any experience you want to share, please put it in the comments. As always, you're seen, you're loved, you're appreciated. Keep evolving, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.